welcome to this month's roundtable. Cool. So we've got a few people just coming into the lobby, so we'll give it a few minutes to kick off. Hi, Giles. How are you? You okay, mate?
Yeah, loving it. Looking
Good.
forward to it. This is what I live for each month.
I noticed your bike's always clean behind you, so
That's not actually my bike. That's my
Right.
wife's. So
Oh, okay.
she took over the turbo this morning. So yeah,
Oh,
I'll
okay.
try and put my. She's at work actually today. So back at work for the
Oh, yeah.
first time in 2 years. Yesterday and today. So that was obviously a disaster.
Good stuff. Cool. So this roundtable event is about collaboration tools and collaboration tools within Microsoft 365. Thank you for joining this session all. Welcome back to those who have joined us before. If you're new to these sessions, then welcome and thank you for joining. We set up Teams normally to mute cameras and mute microphones as a kind of key setting. It's a little bit hit or miss, but hopefully it's done what it needs to. If you do have a question throughout the session, please do feel free to use the raise your hand feature in Teams, and then we could take you off mute then and we can have an open dialogue about any questions or any thoughts that you have. The roundtable is really it's a concept to bring us together, I guess, to talk about our views, to share our opinions, and something that me and Giles just wanted to do a couple of years ago, just to either talk about our own experiences or our own thoughts, or bring together experts from across the communities and across the people that we talk to and we engage with, and then bring them to a wider audience, and have open dialogue on that as well. So we encourage any questions that you have, any views that you have, please just raise your hand and we'll come and unmute you, and kind of have a good discussion and conversation. Amazingly, we're on Spotify. I don't know how that happened. Thanks, Lauren, for doing that. So you can follow us on Spotify. This is our 8th session, so you can go back all the way to the start if you so wish.
It's so surreal.
It's so surreal. Yeah, we have had quite a high number of listeners as well on our analytics for Spotify. So
someone's got way too much time.
yeah, or way bring way too much value. I don't know. Probably the former. But yes, and we are also on YouTube. We're very thankful for our audience that we've now followed past 100 subscribers. So thank you very much for everybody who has subscribed already. If you haven't, if you please could, it'd be great. We're really trying to grow our community and share the knowledge in the digital and business change space that we do here at iCoTech. As always, if you've got any questions, please do feel free to email us at info@icotechservices.co.uk. Connect with me, Joel Markham, or Giles Hartwright on LinkedIn. More than happy to have any conversations about any of these topics and the ones we've covered before. So that is a pretty good, I think I've covered everything there on my list. Once again, thank you. And Giles, over to you. Can you kick us off, please, mate?
Brilliant. Thanks, Joel. So for anyone who's new, just a bit of background to myself. I'm a program director in the Cabinet Office. I also work in the office of the CTO, delivering the enterprise architecture blueprint for government, and that's my sort of current ongoing project. Today, as Joel said, we're going to talk about collaboration, and I'm just going to try and share my screen, and let's go presentation mode. Switch that one around. Okay, Joel, can you just give me the heads up when you see the screen?
You probably want to change it around again, mate, because I think you're on. We can see your your panel. I know PowerPoint Live is throwing you off a little bit. It has thrown me off as well.
Bit, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Looking good now.
All right, fantastic. Okay, cool. So yeah, we're talking about collaboration. Now, I spend an awful lot of time, probably way too much time, looking into collaboration, because it's one of those concepts that's so broad and it's so big, and it could cover so many different things. So we've already done sort of some work on change and communication, and how important communication is to that change, and how important communication is when you collaborate. So I think sort of Joel and I in sort of discussion sort of went down the sort of digital tools route, and how sort of digital and how technology can assist in delivering better collaboration to people, and how it can help that. But in order to offset that, I've also looked at some of the drawbacks of collaboration, and how things have changed over the past couple of years, how it's really affected me and how it's affected the way I work, and how some of the drawbacks for me. But then moving on to some of the benefits, and then Joel's going to give us a take on M365 and some of the tools that can help you and your businesses collaborate or improve their ability to collaborate. So, as always, I started off with some quotes, no end of quotes on collaboration, but some fairly punchy quotes from people. Great things in business are never done by one person; they're done by a team of people. Okay, collaboration. Steve Jobs. It's important for his legacy. In the long history of humankind, those who have learned to collaborate and improve effectively have prevailed. I mean, all of these are true. Stephen Covey, I particularly like synergy, the combined effect of individuals in collaboration that exceeds the sum of their individual effects. I mean, we've always heard that the team is greater because of the sum of those parts. So I think collaboration has become, in particular over the last few years in digital space, has become absolutely vital to the way we work. If we didn't have those digital tools to deliver a collaborative working environment over the past couple of years, things would have been a lot different now. So just looking a bit about collaboration and stats pre-pandemic. So what I found is this report by Slack on collaboration and how people view collaboration.
Slack the tool, mate? Is in Slack
the tool, as right. There are other tools that allow people to collaborate, other than Microsoft 365.
Damn it!
I had to get someone else in. So Slack did this, and it could have been anyone, to be honest, but they basically looked at surveyed 7,000 people across the world, knowledge workers, effectively. And down the right-hand side, you can see a list of the percentages of what makes good collaboration, which I found really interesting. But also, I'll let you have a read through those. But also to combine that with some further breakdown of that data. So in the box on the left-hand side, you can look at the age ranges of those people and the priority for what makes good collaboration for those different age groups, which I found fascinating. So looking at trusting colleagues to do a good job, 18 to 24-year-old, having clear responsibilities, and then being able to communicate with colleagues effectively. And for me, that basically marries up into the way you progress throughout your career. I mean, I'm in the middle box.
Can I just clarify though, mate? So
yeah, 18, sure.
Is this kind of 18 to 24-year-olds? I might probably be sillier, but 18 to 24-year-olds trust colleagues to do good work, and then when you're 25 to 44 years old.
So this is their highest priority for what makes good collaboration.
Okay.
So in the 18 to 24-year-old bracket, the top priority for them to ensure good collaboration was trusting colleagues to do a good job, and same for the rest of them. And it's very interesting to see that obviously the majority of the people said I can communicate effectively. Communicating with my colleagues easily was the top one overall for what makes good collaboration. However, if you look at the difference between age groups and probably where those people are within their career, what makes good collaboration really varies, and what is the most important thing for those people really varies. So this goes back to my comment early on, sort of the link between collaboration and communication is so important to combine the two, and it can't just be collaboration and collaboration tools on their own. So it'd be interesting to hear, and feel free throughout the conversation to have a think about how the pandemic has affected some of this output. So, for example, with trusting colleagues to do a good job, having clear responsibilities, communicating effectively with colleagues, how has that been affected by the pandemic? And Joel can call out some of that stuff through the conversation that we have. One piece I want to first talk about is some of the downsides of collaboration in the modern workplace and how the impact of the pandemic. has had on that digital communications, which is what we're really honing in on in this presentation, in this webinar. So collaboration overload, I absolutely have this on a daily basis. So time spent in emails, instant messaging, phone and video calls. You can see some of the stats there, the increase in the workspace, increase in the collaboration workspace. I don't know about you, Joel, what you think about collaboration overload.
Massive, isn't it? Sometimes distracting to be able to kind of prioritize your stuff as well, you know. And some of those features in Teams are helping now, aren't they? Some of the kind of 5 minutes at the end of the meeting warning, some of the kind of you can turn off. What's that?
Is what we're going to come to.
Oh yeah. But yeah. We could cover it a bit. But yeah, it is
because
massive, isn't it?
Digital tools have really helped, but they have also unintended consequences, and they've really impacted the way we work and really impacted how our own personal lives. And this is coming from me from a personal perspective. Now, for some of those negative impacts, those negative effects, so career derailment. So when do you have time, and this is to the listeners, when do you have time to think strategically about your career? Because you're constantly on. We're constantly receiving messages. You're constantly getting pings about emails, pings about instant messaging. You have the phone and you have video calls and meetings. It's eating into family life and time. I work from home, as you can probably see. This is not my office, but my laptop's always set up, and I always have that ability to check in and quickly check how things are going. And someone can send me an IM because they might see them online. So it eats into that family life. Burnout. I particularly feel with a number of communication channels that there's potentially a risk that I become overwhelmed and burnout and suffer from some burnout because of that constant always on communication, that I never feel I have that time to really focus on a piece of work. And that's something that I really need to learn to improve. And actually, some of the stuff that is now being brought out, especially in Microsoft, so I use M365, some of the things that they're putting in there, so some of the focus time, for example, really getting you to think about how you're working, really driving some analysis on how you work, on how people will work with you. And then decline in physical and mental well-being. So how do we forego the opportunity to take some time to go out for lunch with colleagues, or to take that time, as people say, to taking a walk to work, for example, from the station, taking that time really to switch off from doing your work. And the one thing I'd really hone in on here is a psychology of cognitive switching or shifting. So this is about how we are very much in shallow work. So we never have time, because of all the means of communicating with each other and the constant always on, always messaging, always got a means of someone communicating with you, is because I'm not just talking about Microsoft 365, you've still got Slack and you've got Trello and you've got all these other different tools that you could use. It's that constant shifting between them never allows you really to get into deep work. Book that I can recommend that I read previously, Cal Newport's work, his book Deep Work was really interesting, focusing on how we need to set aside time to really focus and to really provide ourselves with an opportunity to disconnect from all those distractions, to really deliver good quality work, real work that you think, you know what, actually, I've had a chance to really dig into the detail on that topic, and I've really provided some value to it, rather than being, I could do a bit of this and then I check my emails, do a bit of this, I'll take a phone call, do a bit of this, I'll go outside. Yeah. And I think the shift into the digital environment, and it's great to hear your views, Joel, the shift to the digital environment, I think there was still a difficulty with getting deep work once you were in the office, but I think the shift to the digital has really exposed some of those potential downsides of the always on, the instant messaging and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. How often do you get messaged outside of work hours though, Giles? It's out of interest.
Well, it depends if I have my phone with me. So I think this again comes down to some of the features that you can address your communication style with people. So, for example, I shifted my emails so they don't send now until 9 o'clock in the morning. So if I work in the evening, I'm not getting pinged with emails. My wife gets emails all the time in the evening. I'll get emails in the evening. So I think there is still an awful lot to be done to use the tools that have been made available to us to improve our lives, but not just your own life, but other people's lives. Because I can be quite happy working in the evening because I've got to pick up my son in the afternoon, but I'm quite happy to do some work in the evening and fire off a couple of emails. But if someone then potentially junior to me feels obliged to answer that email or work, it's the impact on them as well.
Yeah, true. It's probably the setting of standards as well, though, isn't it? And making sure people know that you're not expecting that response back. I often, it's interesting one because I often that eating point two, they're eating into family life and evenings. You know, I'm a bit like yourself, you know, young family and kids and stuff. They kind of go to bed 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you know, if they choose to, and then if they go to bed and they sleep and the other half's not nagging me to watch a film with her, I'm all up for jumping on my laptop and answering some emails with a bottle of red and enjoying myself, you know. But
Because
to
you
be honest,
enjoy it.
but then the team here, they know that then they don't have to. I hope they know they don't have to kind of come back to me. They're not expected to come back to me. And I guess it's having that framework, isn't it, of saying, okay, you know, as a team, where I work like this, but you know, having the awareness of your colleagues and understanding how they work. I know Craig, for example, he doesn't have Teams on his phone because he needs to be able to operate in that at home mode on the laptop and then switch off in the nights, you know, and that's just the way he operates. Although he does get the short straw if I've got his mobile number, so if I really need to contact him, I ring him. But then they're code reds, you know, and never normally the case. Whereas I'm much more, you know, got Teams on my phone, and got, you know, those, you know, that kind of, it does eat into that evening. But I guess it's about how you manage it to make sure it doesn't eat into your family life, isn't it? So you just making those priorities.
I could not agree more. And your team, and you clearly have set those boundaries and you've set those expectations well within your team because they don't feel obliged to answer those. But if you're in a considerably larger organization, you may not know those people. They may not be within your team. They may be outside your team. You're working in government perspective, and I work on sort of cross-government project. Actually, those people that I'm emailing might not have the confidence to turn around and say, you know what, I don't have to do this now, or I'm to do this now. And it's hard to set those boundaries with people in a larger organization. I would suggest
and even just putting a communication policy together. We all do communication plans for projects, don't we? But maybe we should do a communication policy for our teams. You know, what is the boundaries of you know, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, you know, but also trying to balance it with maturity as well, and just making it a pragmatic decision and just being self-aware of what you're asking other people to do indirectly. But burnout is a massive one there, isn't it? The negative effects of the collaboration overload. I don't know, people I hear this, that people are burnt out, you know, people are busy, but I don't know whether that's directly as a result of people going home or not, and being work from home and therefore being forced to collaborate more. Or maybe people are just working longer hours because people like myself and maybe yourself, I can't remember your exact situation, Giles, but the commute to work maybe is an hour for me in my old corporate job, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to London. You know, I was working from 6:30 as I sat on that train from Cardiff to London. I would work, and then I would get on the train at 5:30, and I would work on the train all the way back until 8 o'clock. You know, and so my time of work was quite a lot. I don't know whether people are stretching that now they're at home and they can get up and walk downstairs. Is that the cause of burnout? They're just working more hours versus the collaboration.
There's an intensity for digital collaboration. So we did collaborate when we were in the office, when everyone was in the office. Of course we did. We did all the time. We had meetings. You collaborated it sort of ad hoc with your team members. But what I think is now, with the intensity of it being video calls all the time and my video calls being back to back, I think there's an intensity level there that you didn't get when you were in the office and you potentially had to move from one meeting room to another meeting room, or you went to a breakout space and you stood in a breakout space and you all around and you discussed it, or you went to an external location, or you went to a different office. I think now, with everything being on digitally and remote collaboration, I really find that there's a greater intensity. Like, I feel at the end of the day, I feel more drained at the end of the day than I would have done if I was in the office in lots of ways, because I've back-to-back meetings. So, for example, today I was back-to-back from 9 o'clock until about 2, I think it was 2 or 2:30, which is intense. It's that's me again having to deal with my own ways of working. But because I'm always on, I've got that opportunity to be always on as someone, because someone called me during my downtime between that, and I didn't turn around and say, you know what, no, this is this whatever time, I've got time off to do this. Actually, that cut away that time that I would have had to potentially take a break. So I think from my perspective, that's how there's been a negative effect on it.
And I hear that a lot, and I kind of sympathise with that. Although I think if I refer back to my Babcock days where I was in Bristol, I think every day I was back to back. I digging deep down that memory of that archive, I was absolutely back to back every day. And I remember running around with the PSO project support officer saying, "You're going the wrong way up the stairs, mate. Your meeting's down there." I'm like, ugh. And I remember actually the PSO fell over down the stairs. She fell over. Yeah, I remember she fell down the stairs in Babcock because we had to turn on the stairs and go back down. And I remember she hurt herself, and we had to kind of like just obviously do proper risk assessment stuff. But we going back to that memory of my time, that was definitely back-to-back meetings. But we were running around the buildings, going from one room to the other. I think maybe one thing that is different for me is the lack of the walk and the lack of the coffee conversations. Way of engaging is at home. Your only way of communicating is through the screen and through the headset, right? Whereas before, you were maybe in a room with a screen on Teams in a conference room, or the next meeting was actually in the coffee shop. The meeting after that was down in the sandwich bar, and then the meeting after that was upstairs in the CEO's office, and the meeting after that was maybe at the desk collaborating with somebody else. So your variance was probably more, I guess. Your variation was more. I don't think I'm having more meetings now than I did before COVID. In my view, I think I'm having the same amount. I'm just having more of the same types of meetings like this. Is my view.
Very, very much so. And I think that split between meetings, and you mentioned earlier, so some of the digital tools are being put in place that allows you that break. So much like you're saying, when you have that 5-minute warning at the end of meetings, actually that's really good. It's that giving you that reminder to say, you know what, you need to step out, you need to take 5 minutes, stand up from your desk, you need to move around, that kind of stuff. I mean, I've got a standing desk to try and alleviate some of the stress, but I'm fortunate to have the space to have a standing desk. But having those reminders to say stop, going back to your point about having that policy that you either informal or formal, where you sit down and you say, this is how I expect you to work, I don't expect you to respond in a week. There's a whole bunch of things there that are required, which are still in the early development.
Just an idea, even like that 5-minute warning, if your policy is written, say to people, look, if you had back-to-back meetings, use that as your get out, jump off, have your break. If you've got 4 meetings in a row, your second one, 5-minute warning comes up, say, guys, I'm going to go take a 5-minute break. What's the actions? Let's summarize them, get it done quickly, and let's go and log off for 5 minutes. And
because realistically, what does that 5 minutes give you? But I would say, again, from my perspective, it's really hard to do that. I mean, I have that 5-minute warning, and how many times do I actually use it? Not as much as I should. So I think from a collaboration perspective, I think there's been some real negative effects of digital technology, digital and sort of changes in the way of working that have had a negative effect on my experience and potentially some of my ability to deliver high quality work. Now, with that in mind, what I want to do is, before the next slide, is get the audience, whoever's listening, to have a think about actually where have there been benefits to collaboration? Where have we improved collaboration? How's technology improved collaboration and provided us with a platform to improve the way we collaborate? Because there's a kind of leads into sort of the conversation we will have in a bit about those tools and how they work, how we can employ some of those tools to really drive benefits. Because I think within the M365 stack you're going to talk about, there are so many opportunities to improve the way we work that I would say outweighs any of these negative comments. And I don't know if you've got anything first, Joel, that you want to.
I guess it's important. I guess the interesting thing is Ian's point as well. Just before we move on to that, is Ian's point in the chat here is just time traveling to work, to and from work, because I think is what we talked about earlier, and having the clear boundaries.
Boundaries are very
I guess it's really different for me and for you, Giles. I think because we're in different positions ish.
Yep.
Like I think I'm realizing more so that my life in my work is one and the same thing, because I run the business, right? So I have less boundaries than maybe somebody who actually wants to prioritize family life outside of the working week or the working hours, and wants to, and that's more important to them. Different roles will require you to operate differently, have different boundaries, won't they? But yeah, for me, because of what I do, the boundaries on work clothes and workplace, and like I wear these on a Saturday afternoon as my clothes, my style, and what I do, it's no boundary really for me ish. But
I think those boundaries for me, and yeah, I think I actually thought about earlier on, and then clearly straight away forgot about it. But I think that commute, not necessarily the commute, but I think the boundary that you separates work from life is something that we've lost. I mean, it wasn't the be all and end all for me, because I enjoy the work that I do, and I don't mind working in the evenings. And when I get into something, I want to continue doing a good job, and I want to do some stuff. But I think for lots of people, it's difficult now to separate where that boundary. There's a blur. There's not a shut my laptop, put it in my locker, or close my laptop, put it in my bag, go and do the commute. Even if you hate the commute, it is a kind of decompression. Get home, and then it's home time, and you're at home, and then that's your time outside the office. There's clear delineation there, and I think being able to. So I haven't found the correct way of doing it, apart from the fact, actually, no, tell a lie in some ways. I have to pick my son up at 5 o'clock, so I finish, or just after 5. So I finish every day at that time, and I go and pick my son up from nursery, and I have a hard deadline. Whereas, and I think that kind of replicates a similar sort of deadline from at the end of work, where you would finish work at 5:30, and you would leave. And so Ian's point is right on the money. I could not agree more. Having a question would be is how do you instill that in a digital or remote working environment? So we're taking on in some instances a recruitment policy that is nationwide recruitment. It isn't location specific, which will drive far more remote working and far more collaboration across digital means. How do you generate that type of mentality and that type of culture within your workplace that allows you to cut off at a certain time? It's a really interesting piece, and we're kind of straying a little bit.
Yeah, I think it just goes down to that policy that you set and keeping it clear, keeping the standards, and being aware of it. I think, there's a lot of other like negative impacts, of the overload and the collaboration. But as you said, there's a lot of other positives as well.
So let's talk about the good stuff now. Yes. So now we've been through all that made everyone thoroughly depressed. Let's talk about the good stuff for technology and how it's improving collaboration. So I just noted down a few things that, from my perspective, working on, and one of part of my project is the use of Microsoft 365 across government. So how do we use it across government? How do we use it in departments? Trying to go from a more from a siloed approach of this department does this type of work, and that's it in their own little boundary. How do we work across government? So from my perspective, I think technology is improving collaboration by making it efficient communication. So again, it's the flip side of this meeting malarkey that I was talking about earlier. You can have effective meetings with people wherever they are. So you've got efficient communications. You don't have someone who's on a spider phone, someone who can't dial in. The majority of people are used to this type of communication channel now. So you can actually get them together really efficiently and effectively and are able to communicate. So obviously those online meetings means you can bring in resource from wherever you want. So you can work in different countries if your recruitment policy allows that, which the government doesn't. You could effectively work from anywhere in the world, as you are willing to work in different time zones or overnight. Centralized files and real-time editing. I mean, this is absolutely fundamental to the way government works, and what we are trying to do in my program is trying to enable that across departments. So at the moment, all things are a bit siloed with departments. What we're looking at trying to do is trying to open up those traditional boundaries, which is a technological plus a cultural boundary. We're trying to open that up so we can real-time edit and we can work together. Enhanced security, quick, easy, real-time editing. But then on the right, so reducing silos, removing the need for attachments, reducing security threats, increased speed of review. So technology is helping all of these things. And I just put down at the bottom a few other things that came into my head whilst I was thinking about this. But really keen to hear what other people think about the way technology is improving collaboration, and also you, Joel, and what you would think of these, whether these are.
Yeah, I think it would be great to see if anybody else could have a view on what ways they see technology improving collaboration. It'd be good to get your perspectives. From my perspective, I'll just give you the biggest one that came to my mind when prepping for this is that in lockdown 1, was it lockdown 1? Yeah, I think it was the first ever lockdown. We were working with Office for National Statistics in some project work over there, and they wanted to do a discovery. And we were going to go and do a discovery workshops with them, and to capture requirements and for a system they were building. And our standard way of doing it at that time was actually to go in, like Agilists, was to go into a room with, as you know, Giles, we did this many years ago, didn't we? Sticky notes, like colored pens. I was getting really weird with my colors and, what means good, what means bad, and all the writing and all that kind of stuff, and sticking them up and putting them in boxes and prioritizing them on the board. I remember doing that in London. We did that loads of times, fun stuff, right? And then ONS kind of came on board and said, we want to do that discovery with that. Sounds great. And then the lockdown happened, and it was like that day that everybody went home. Everybody literally went home from across the UK. But what I did is I looked online. And I said, look, how can we use technology to do this discovery, and we'll be able to get through it. And luckily they kind of trusted us, and we did the discovery. We actually captured 1,363 sticky notes digitally. We had 28 hours of workshops, and we met with 85 people. And the brilliant thing was, right, we were able to vote on the sticky cards. We were able to collate this data and to capture this information. And I was able to download it in a CSV file. Like I was able to download every single comment, like attached by every single person, that was like prioritized and then categorized. And all the annotations we did digitally, right, was all captured into a CSV file, and all that knowledge. Imagine having to write that up. Imagine having to kind of the calligraphy on the on the card.
The stickers across all of those stickers. I mean, it's
that would have been a nightmare. I will admit.
I mean, I've done it, so that's the worst thing. It's like a horror.
Yeah, I remember the photos I used to take photos of the board, and then and I used to zoom in on my writing.
That? Yeah.
And how can you vote on it? How can you vote on that card? That sticky note being more important. Oh God, it was so hard. So now we actually prefer to do discoveries and those workshops digitally, because we can capture those kind of cards and that information much more statistically and scientifically than we could in a room. And you always run out of space on a whiteboard in the room, don't you? But you never run out of space on whiteboards in Teams, because you just zoom out and move to the left. So those are that's the kind of biggest benefit that I've ever seen from it. And just connection, being able to get in front of people, even
different
where
people,
they are in the world.
Diversity, inclusion.
Yeah, so much easier to kind of move a meeting back an hour than it is to move the location of it, because somebody's in a different site. How many times before, like I was working with customers 5 years ago, where the common statement was, sorry, I can't do that meeting, I'm not in tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not here tomorrow, I can't do that meeting, I can't come. And it's like, well, that always bugged me.
Different location, yeah.
Yeah,
or I've got to get a train to London to come and do that meeting.
Yeah, that's just so much more beneficial now. We could just move things around. So massive improvements in collaboration, and technology is stepping us through that and taking us through that, isn't it? Day by day, which is absolutely brilliant. There are, of course, certain conversations you need to have face to face, right? But
yeah, I would build on that as well. So I'd build on it from a perspective of the civil service is attempting to be as diverse and as inclusive as an employer as possible, which is what we should always be striving towards. However, what I think that from building on your comments, is actually there's a considerable amount of scope for including people who would not normally be included in those conversations and not included in those workshops. So, for example, we just ran 5 workshops with Microsoft, and Microsoft were facilitating them. For each workshop, the minimum we had was 36 people in the workshop. Can you imagine trying to coordinate the movements of, so there's probably some crossover between some of them, but around 100, 150 people across the civil service to get them involved on my project from across the country into a room to facilitate that kind of discussion. So the range of people that we had, the diversity of opinion and the diversity of background and understanding was absolutely amazing to see, because it took the conversation in directions that we didn't expect it to go. So we had clearly sort of our ideas of what we expected to get out of those conversations. And historically, I think, and I probably could prove it by going back and historically looking at my calendar invites, but I think we would have had a far narrower group of individuals that potentially wouldn't have given us that diversity of opinion, and it wouldn't have been inclusive, because it would have been hard and you would have fallen back. And I think, as always, everyone's time conscious, you'd fall back in those ways of working, those unconscious biases that you turn around and you go, I'm going to bring in these 3 people because I value their opinion, but it's just because you work with them. So
I see the cost. Imagine as a department head, as a function owner, as a cost center owner, you've got a workshop that you're running, in that example of a digital strategic leadership kind of, or future workshop, whatever that might be, with Microsoft. Well, if the grade 6, or I can't remember how the grades work now, but if the lower grade wants to go to that meeting and the higher senior manager wants to go to that meeting, you've got a travel budget for the year. Who are you going to pick? Organic, naturally, I think I probably would just think about it, pick the senior person, because that's the person leading the team. Therefore, you don't get diversity, as you said there. So, imagine the travel budgets that have been cut. The economic and the environmental benefits of collaboration using technology is I'm sure there's studies in there. I did have a look, but it got confusing. But there's just obvious benefits, isn't it? Like Liz says here, it's a no-brainer, really. People do seem to be more focused and more organized with the planned digital meetings these days, and I agree. I think there's obviously pros and cons to everything that anybody does every day of their lives, right? But there's for me,
this outweighs the negatives, and I think what we're going to come on to next, Joel, and what you're going to talk us through some of the I'll just go to the next slide if I can go the right way on my slideshow. There we go. How the M365 stack, what that does, what we can do, so what is available, how can it be used, cultural change. It'd be really good, sort of, because I mean, we could talk for hours on this again, like all of our topics. I'll flick to the next slide, and you can. Do you want me to flick to the next slide, or do you want to do? Yeah, just flick to the next slide.
I'll just, if you can stay on this one, I think this was good for now to discuss now. But I think that the most important thing for me, I think, is that where we are today, take out public sector, because I think there's more of a driver, more of a kind of a focus to not come back in the office. But we talk about the pros and cons of collaborating and the way in which COVID has impacted this. My opinion is that nobody's running back to the office. Right? And nobody's kind of really keen to get back in the office 5 days a week. And from everybody I speak to at the moment, nobody's nobody I know in my network is saying, my business, we're all in the office 5 days a week. And that, we're really excited to do that. And I think that's just a show of people being more reserved and more taking precautions, probably. But I think if it was that important for us to be in the office, I think society would be. Is my gut feeling. So I think that there's definitely another factor for the pros and cons.
It's just a balance at the end of the day. I think you're right. I think some businesses need to be in the office. So if you're selling commercial real estate or something like that, and you're showing people around offices or whatever, or you're front of house somewhere, but I think you're right. I think the majority is 3 and 2. Build up, understand how you work, and then especially if you're looking to recruit nationally and you're looking for the best people for the job, then you've got to enable this.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what's available, obviously there's lots of tools that are available out there for collaboration. One of my views, and it's just a personal view again, is that don't pick too many tools. I've worked with lots of organizations that have Slack. What is it? G Suite? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
G
Yeah,
whatever it's called.
sweet.
G Suite, that thing I can't use.
Google
And
Space, I think it is.
yeah, Google, yeah, and then Microsoft as well. And I think you make things inherently more complicated when you've got three different ways of communicating. Oh, and what's the Facebook one? Workplace, which probably would have gone down last night, which would be quite funny. But yeah, so it's a Workplace. I think it's called Workplace. But yeah, those don't pick too many, because if you think about all the pains that Giles came up with earlier about being contactable outside of hours and all those challenges you have. Imagine turning your Teams off and then having a Slack message from somebody. It could be an absolute nightmare. And then having a Yammer call or a Facebook message. I think
tagged
every
in a
organization.
Trello or a good G Suite doc or any of these
yeah,
things.
so many things. And to be fair, even within Microsoft 365, there's potentially
That's
too
enough.
many. So I think there's real appetite there, and I implore anybody to kind of think about the governance and who is doing what and how people are using these technologies, and really have a communication, a collaboration center of excellence in your organizations. Really make sure you're thinking about who are our customers, our users, how are they collaborating. Things like getting Teams on your phone. I mean, if you assign yourself to Microsoft, and if you're a Microsoft house, don't kind of disable Teams on people's personal phones, because it's just pointless. You've got to have that technology in place. So I think they're just common sense things that I've seen across our customer base anyway, and in my experience. I have been in some organizations where, it was like, is this a Slack meeting, a Zoom meeting, or a Teams meeting? Which one is it, please? Because it's 5 minutes past and I don't know which one to log into, and I'm already getting frustrated. So I think that's just one of the things in the communication policy that people need to put in place, really. How can it best be used, best practice?
Well, I think you just touched on it. I think you just touched on it. Is thinking about what your user needs.
Yeah.
What is it? And I think that is. Oh, what's happened there?
I've stolen it from you, mate. Sorry.
Have you?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So I think this is a point. I'm just conscious of time as well. But yeah, it is about the user needs, and I'll just whistle stop tour through some of the key points and key features that I've seen over the last couple of months in the Microsoft technology stack. Obviously, being a Microsoft partner, I can't talk about the other stacks, and we don't use them. And I do find it a lot easier just having one. But I think that the key piece here is that people ask me sometimes, what is Teams? And maybe it was less clear 6 months ago, and what is the vision for Teams? And I always remember an early door conversation with a Microsoft account exec where he said that the Teams is like the shop window. You will come into the future and you open Teams and you'll access all your services through that. And I think Windows 11 has come through that circle as well, in that transition. And we'll kind of just talk about that in more detail later on. But realistically, Teams is where you kind of should be going for absolute collaboration. And if you're not using Teams, anybody on this call, please do. Obviously you are for the joining of this call, but if you're just using it for joining calls, then there's so much more that's available. And one of the key features really is the document management and the document collaboration. So some of the recent enhancements to Teams is you can open these in Teams itself, in an app, so on the desktop app in the browser, and you can even change the default. So more recently, kind of 6 months ago, that wasn't there. You had kind of in the browser or in the app or whatever, in the browser or in Teams. Now you've got the ability to open it directly in the app, as in the desktop app from here. But if I open it in Teams, because that's really where Microsoft visualize you going, is to collaborate in Teams. You're accessing this document now that's actually stored in SharePoint, that's in Teams. Some of the things you could do here, you can see I've added some comments earlier, so you can start tagging people. So if you've got a section 1, communication policy, I'm effectively saying, well, Giles, can you go and update that, please? I can't add Giles in this exact example, but you can right click on here and you just get more interactive communication potential. So you can actually start tagging people in here. Can you add some content here from the SLT meeting last week? Yeah, and you can start kind of adding people into this. You can, and it'll allow you to bring people into the document itself. So I'm sharing access petite there to this document. And even if you wanted to add somebody else in here, just a couple of quick tricks and tips really, you can actually say, you can tag somebody else, and you can add them now as this is a conference room. I won't add the conference room. We'll get Brian back on it. You can assign it to Brian in Planner as well. So using Planner integrated with Teams, he'll now actually get a little task in Planner that he has to go and complete, which is pretty cool. So, they're kind of the quick tips and tricks. The other one that's come out more recently is the conversation. So like, when you join a Teams meeting, Giles, and you've got like 3 people and it automatically creates a conversation. Well, when you've got a document, you can create a conversation associated to a document. Yeah, so you could say like, hi, how are we enjoying this document creation?
This is interesting. So you're creating a little thread forum type chat zone for the work that you're doing, like project, document, whatever it is.
Yeah, and then you could get funky with your emojis and stuff like that. And Lauren loves the GIFs, a little penguin dancing. She loves that time to time. So you can add all these in here as well. I'm going to try and find Lauren's penguin because she loves this penguin. I can't spell, but yeah, somewhere in there.
I
won't bother because it's one of those stupid emoji things that nobody can actually see on the Spotify. I've just realised. So, but yeah, I think this is the kind of the best use of Teams and those type of services. The other thing that I really do like is the tasks by Planner. So if you go into Teams, 3 dots by here, and search for tasks by Planner, it will be changed to Planner soon. You can actually bring in Planner boards into Teams, and you can start adding your tasks in list view, which I really like, because I'm used to writing things down in lists, top to bottom, to do washing or whatever it is, and you get all the features and get them in this list view, which is really quite cool. And you can start adding notes and checklist items as well. All right, and then when we go to kind of more collaboration services, you have got Yammer. And also your OneDrive as well. Some of the other things that I don't know how many people know, but you can actually start sharing your OneDrive files with lots of people, and you can give them different access to the files that sit in your OneDrive as well. You don't actually have to move your OneDrive files over to SharePoint. So there's a lot of kind of quick and simple kind of features available within Microsoft 365. There's no, I guess, to show you every single one of them is nigh on impossible in this session, and not really the point. I guess the point is, if I can ask you, and I'll share a guide actually produced by Microsoft into the chat in a short while, and it has actually got some, I think it's got 6 or 7 points in there, steps that allow you to to kind of use Teams and Word and the rest of the Microsoft 365 suite to be able to kind of utilize it to the best of its ability, really. One of the other things as well, if you've got it open in this kind of browser view, the catch-up feature is quite useful as well, because if somebody else has made changes, like Giles has made changes to this document now, I could press the catch-up view, and it'll bring all those other file changes into this instantly, rather than having to close and open like it did before in the old SharePoint architecture. So yeah, there's lots of other services in here as well. I'm trying to find Whiteboard. Here we go, Whiteboard. I don't know if anybody's used Whiteboard, but this is growing in capability and functionality now as well. And this allows you to go and create, as it says on the tin, a digital whiteboard. And you can see here, this has changed quite heavily in the last 3 months, I think, from my experience. You've got shapes, you've got reactions, notes, and you can start making different colored notes. And so on and so forth.
So this was my challenge to Microsoft when we worked with them recently, maybe about 3 months ago actually, when I challenged them, was their whiteboard tool wasn't up to the standard that I would expect, having used the likes of Mural and Miro. However, they have made some significant efforts to make it a better experience, because that was one of the drawbacks I noted to them in our sort of conversations about how the government use it, or how departments use it. You want to use a third party because it's just not up to standard, but they've really taken on board that feedback, and it goes to show. And I think with Microsoft, some of those smaller individual firms third parties may actually be more innovative and agile, but just the strength of Microsoft is the fact that it can put a lot of effort into making something better, a lot better very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And it is really great stuff now, and especially I won't do it on this session because I'm not too sure how it'll work. But opening up Whiteboard in a Teams call is the idea of the digital collaboration approach. So if you've got 3 or 4 people on a Teams call and you want to get creative, as I do sometimes with my drawing, rather than open up PowerPoint, which I used to do. I used to open up PowerPoint and used to kind of start creating shapes and share my screen, and then share the document with somebody else across the team. Now you can actually do it in Whiteboard, which is quite cool. And it comes up with these different templates as well. So you've got strategy templates, project planning templates. So this wasn't there 3 months ago, and this is my kind of dream sticky notes, as I talked about earlier with the other example. Not quite there in terms of exporting and stuff like that, but getting there. And I know it's coming. So yeah, lots of great technology available within 365. I guess it really just does, kind of Yammer is the other one, which is more the social platform. So just being able to communicate and collaborate in Yammer, communicating updates, so news, discussions, polls, all that, and really creating that community feel across the organization as well. So yeah, lots of tools available within the technology stack that we use here at iCoTech. And I guess it really does depend on how you want to use the systems and the services. But if you can start with Teams and start, if I go back to Teams, start using the channels and not just using it for chat and meetings like this, then that's the
so
best
one
advice.
thing you haven't touched on, Joel, I think it might be worth just touching on, is project management. How to collaborate within sort of project environments. It's not about sharing it, but just giving a brief, because that's kind of what we worked on, about how to bring our teams more transparency, how to make them collaborate better, how to sort of share knowledge, that type of thing. It was really, which was really valuable to where we've been working on that project.
Yeah, you can do lots of services you can use now. You can use Planner for creating project plans. You can also use Project for the Web as well. So, and you can bring Project for the Web into his project. You can bring Project for the Web into Teams as well, which is quite cool. So if a task list is too light for you, and these tasks are too simple, and you want to kind of capture more in-depth detail, you could do it in project.microsoft.com. Obviously, if you've got the appropriate license, you can actually start creating schedules, mini schedules, and you'll see it looks and feels like Planner, but you've got other services in here, other kind of fields that you can assign, and you can start using groups as well to bring people into your project. You can also, one of the new features in that is upload from Microsoft Desktop as well. So if you've got Project Desktop, you can actually import a project file into Microsoft Project, which is pretty cool. Look at this. In this demo, I've got no license to create a project, so you have to believe me. But yeah, that can then be brought back into Teams, and you can all, in a channel, you can all collaborate on a project using Microsoft Project for the Web.
So Teams has become that hub, would you say, for all of that M365 stack. So if businesses or any of the people listening really want to invest time, is understanding how Teams has become the hub to coordinate all that activity in order to allow people to collaborate better and to drive that collaboration across a business, rather than it just be, I'm working on a project, so I'm a project team. I'm working in finance, I'm a finance team. It's bringing all of those different people together.
Yeah, and I think this is great for us as a business here, and it's great for many of our partners and customers, etc. But I think it gets really complicated if you've got Slack to go and contend with as well, or you've got the G Suite or whatever it's called, and you've got different products. I can't stress enough how that'll just confuse people, using different platforms.
So I would also say it's about that. It's an issue that we have across government. We use multiple platforms and multiple different ways of collaborating. Yes, it does add to that complexity. What I would say, sort of the area for me, is about the interoperability. So if you have one part of your organization working on one platform and another part of the organization working on another platform, in any organization, it's actually difficult because you have different ways of working. The data and the information is not compatible, and it's not particularly easily compatible. You have to change a lot of you have to change documents from one to another. There's a lot of manual work. You're emailing a lot of documents around. You're not effectively collaborating. You're essentially just going back to the old way of
Yeah.
working and emailing stuff around. So I very much agree with your perspective. They have places, but it's definitely being strategic in your thinking about what tools you want to use and what you're using them for.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing that I found the other day, and I've seen it there, and it's one of those things that I've always seen. Don't know how long it's been there for, but it's the Dictate service. So it'll actually, in a board meeting the other day, we actually started using the Dictate. Although it was quite funny watching it. Like, it was quite weird watching this machine write out in text what you're speaking. So it's a bit like hearing yourself speak. Is it like your brain can't compute? So we have to kind of park it in the corner of the room. But it will actually, if you set it up correctly, will actually start listening to your microphone on your laptop and start writing down word for word what the team are saying around the meeting room, which is pretty cool. Obviously, it's got its flaws at the moment, but that's another digital collaboration tool that we've started using now here at iCoTech, which we are finding quite useful. Especially for taking meetings and actions and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really cool. So
Well, that again, and so I was talking to the CIO that I work for on the project, who's SRO, and he was discussing how his daughter, she takes voice notes. She just doesn't type stuff out anymore. So my question was, if we're looking to the future and we're looking at ways of collaborating, if we're using voice notes, how do we get the information and the knowledge out of that voice note and make it accessible to people?
Yeah, well, imagine in the future being able to say action for Giles to
agree.
Write up this thing, and then it'll post it into Planner.
But it's beginning to think about those things, and it's something that we sort of from the center of government and from sort of the enterprise architecture perspective, we're looking at what are these technologies, what are these disruptors that are coming along that we're currently not really grappling with from a central or a cross government perspective, and then getting a group of individuals from multiple departments to look at these problems and go, okay, how can we start investing some time and energy into this so we get on the front foot, and we're not sort of 10 years down the line and go, oh crikey, well, we should have done some more of this.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Look, we could keep talking for ages, couldn't we, Joe?
We could. In summary, collaboration is a good thing and a bad thing. I think we just got to make sure it's mostly a good thing, which I think it is. I think the whole situation of the world and where we are at the moment is moved us forward a little bit, obviously in sad times as well. But make sure there's clear and clearly communicated boundaries, as Ian says on the chat. I think it's really important to do that, and do that in a policy or a guide or training. Let's make communication and collaboration as important as information assurance, in my view, and security. And let's make sure it is actually really talked about across businesses, and that there are digital and technology solutions to solve these problems and to make things easier. But most importantly is keep talking about it, isn't it? That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. I don't think we have a choice anymore. I think this is, if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we could have muddled through and it'd been an incremental change. But there has been a fundamental shift in the way we work. And technology now plays an integral role to the way we work and the way lots of people work. So it's embracing it, understanding where its limitations are, and then trying to work through some of those problems. And it's not going to be an easy road, but it's something I think we need to deal with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool. Thank you, Giles. Interesting chat. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so we've got a lot of time for questions, and I know we've both got a hard stop at 5 o'clock. So unfortunately, we'll be able to open the floor to questions this time. But thank you very much for all of those who've joined. Thank you, Giles, for putting your slide deck together. I love those quotes, mate, and you're gonna have to keep those going.
I know, just keep I don't know. Next time, innovation. Next time, I think is what we're thinking of doing. So that's plenty of quotes there.
Plenty of quotes. I was gonna throw out some quotes today as well. I did some research on some quotes, and I thought, no, I'll let you do the quotes because you're good at those. Yeah. Well, thanks, mate, for the conversation. Thank you for your time.
It's been good. Thank you, everyone on the call.
Yeah, thanks everybody for your input and your comments. Hope you find it useful, and follow us on YouTube. I keep forgetting to do that. Do follow us on YouTube. We're trying to get to 200 subscribers now, and do listen to us on Spotify. And any feedback, any thoughts, any next steps, if anybody's got any subjects, or if anybody wants to come and join us on any of these sessions, please do email us at info@icotechservices.co.uk, and we'll set something up. If anybody wants a pertinent topic to discuss in the future, just chuck us an email, connect with us on LinkedIn, and yeah, we're open to suggestions and feedback, and yeah, getting everybody involved in the session. Yes, I did forget that link. Thank you so much. Here we go. Best practice for collaboration on the Microsoft website. I didn't steal everything from there, I promise. There is still lots of value to going to be obtained from that link. There's a few step-by-step guides in there, and it's one to keep hold of as well. Keep landing on every couple of months, because all the new features for collaboration across 365 are on that service. So yeah, hope that's added some value. Thank you for your time, and catch up on the next one.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Charles. Thanks
Charles.
everybody.
Thanks everyone. Take care. Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Lauren.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.